empty station, the unsolved disappearance of Officer Daniel Miller. The room that swallowed a man. A police officer walks into a building in the middle of the desert. The door locks automatically behind him. No windows, no other exits, no one else inside. 3 hours later, the building is still sealed from the inside, but the officer is gone. No blood, no forced entry, no footprints in the sand outside, no body, no goodbye, no explanation, just a half-full coffee mug on a desk, a radio mic resting in its cradle, and a final transmission that ends mid-sentence. Copy, I've got, hold on. 7 seconds of silence, then static, then nothing. This is the story of Officer Daniel Miller, a 17-year veteran of the Red Mesa County Sheriff's Office, a decorated officer, a father, a husband, a man who walked into a locked room and was never seen again. We still don't know what happened to him, but the deeper you look into this case, the more unsettling it becomes. The black box. To understand how Daniel Miller vanished, you first need to understand where he vanished from. 40 miles outside Red Mesa County, Arizona. Deep desert, flat horizon in every direction, the kind of landscape where the nearest backup is 60 minutes away on a good day. Out there, sitting alone on cracked earth, was a building locals called the Black Box. Its official designation was the Remote Tactical Dispatch Hub, built in the late 1990s to monitor border smuggling corridors and handle emergency calls across one of the most isolated stretches of rural territory in the American Southwest. It was not an ordinary building. Concrete exterior reinforced to withstand impact, steel doors with electronic badge access, no ground-level windows, a self-contained power grid, a satellite uplink tower rising from the roof. The dispatch room itself sat at the center of the structure, sealed off by armory walls and reinforced storage on every side. To get inside, you needed authorization. To leave without triggering an alarm, you needed the right credentials. This was not a building you stumbled into by accident, and it was not a building you left unnoticed. And yet, the man nobody could rattle, Daniel Miller, was not a rookie. 17 years with the Red Mesa County Sheriff's Office, decorated patrolman, crisis negotiator, field training officer, the kind of cop younger deputies watched when they didn't know how to handle something. Colleagues used the same word over and over when asked to describe him. Methodical. He was not impulsive. He was not dramatic. He did not panic. He processed situations the way a surgeon processes a complication, quietly, steadily, without wasting a single movement. He was married, 2 daughters, a home he cared about. He volunteered for overnight dispatch rotations that most deputies avoided, not because he had to, but because he didn't mind the isolation. He once said to a younger colleague, almost casually, "The desert talks, if you listen long enough." Nobody thought much of it at the time. They would later. October 12th, the last shift. October 12th, a Tuesday evening, nothing unusual on the schedule. 6:42 p.m., Daniel Miller badges into the hub. Security log confirms entry. The door seals behind him. 7:03 p.m., routine radio check with Deputy Alvarez on highway patrol. Normal tone, normal cadence, nothing to note. 7:48 p.m., a weather alert comes through. Miller logs it. Standard procedure. 8:16 p.m., perimeter motion sensors detect an unidentified signal near the outer wall. Miller radios in. "Probably wildlife. I'll reset." No tension in his voice, no urgency. He handles it the way he handles everything. Then, at 8:41 p.m., dispatch reaches out. "Unit 12 status," Miller responds. "Copy. I've got, hold on." 7 seconds of silence. Static. Nothing. That was the last anyone heard from Officer Daniel Miller. What Deputy Alvarez found at first, no one assumed the worst. Signal interference during desert storms was common. Radios dropped out all the time, but repeated attempts to reach Miller at 9:05 p.m. went unanswered. All of them, every channel, every frequency. At 9:17 p.m., Deputy Alvarez was dispatched to the hub. He arrived 39 minutes later. The building was dark, no visible breach, no broken windows, no damage to the perimeter, main entrance locked. Alvarez used the master override key to get inside. What he found made no sense. The computer monitors were still on, screens glowing quietly in the dark. The coffee mug on Miller's desk was still half full. The radio mic rested in its cradle. The chair was slightly pushed back, as if someone had just stood up. Officer Miller was not in the building. Alvarez checked every room, every corridor, every locked storage space. Nothing. The man was simply gone. A room with no way out. Investigators arrived within hours and began working the scene methodically. The facility had one main entrance, one rear emergency exit, alarm-wired, pressure-sensitive, impossible to open without triggering an alert. No windows, no underground tunnels on any official blueprint. Both doors were locked from the inside when Alvarez arrived. Neither alarm had activated. No hinges were damaged, no seals broken. Then investigators pulled the security camera footage. The cameras had gone offline. At exactly 8:39 p.m., 2 minutes before Miller's final transmission, the hard drive showed no power failure, no technical fault, a deliberate internal shutdown, a manual override, using administrative credentials that, on that shift, only Daniel Miller possessed. Someone, or something, had made sure there was no recording of what happened next. The theories that don't hold investigators considered every possibility. The first, that Miller had staged a voluntary disappearance. They checked everything: financial records, no distress, marriage, no reported trouble, mental health evaluations, all clean, phone records, nothing unusual. His personal vehicle sat in the parking lot. His wallet was in his locker. His service weapon, still in its holster, had been left behind. No cash had been withdrawn. No bag had been packed. If this was a staged disappearance, it was the worst planned one in history. The second theory, abduction. Forensic teams swept the entire facility. No foreign fingerprints, no fiber anomalies, no blood traces detected under luminol, not a single drop. Outside the building, the desert sand was undisturbed. Wind that night had been minimal, not enough to erase tracks. No tire marks beyond Miller's cruiser and Alvarez's patrol SUV. No footprints, no drag marks, no evidence that another human being had come within 30 feet of that building. If someone had taken him, they had done it without leaving a single trace in the sand. The third theory, cartel involvement. The hub sat along known smuggling corridors. Miller had assisted in 2 significant interdictions that year. Federal agents investigated, intercepted communications, surveillance data, border activity logs. Nothing, no chatter referencing Miller, no unusual movement that night. The FBI eventually ruled cartel involvement unlikely. Every theory investigators proposed, the evidence quietly dismantled. What they found beneath the floor. 3 days after Miller disappeared, a maintenance contractor was reviewing the original 1997 construction blueprints. He found something that hadn't come up in the initial investigation: a sub-level storage conduit, a narrow maintenance shaft running directly beneath the dispatch room floor. In the 2004 renovation documents, that shaft was marked with a single word: sealed, concrete-filled, no longer accessible. Investigators jackhammered a section of floor beneath the dispatch desk, the exact spot where Miller had been sitting. They found the shaft, and it was, in fact, filled solid with concrete. But something about it bothered the lead investigator. The concrete at the top of the fill was a slightly different color, a slightly different texture. A lab analysis was ordered. The results came back quietly, with no press release. The top layer of the fill was newer, poured years after the 2004 renovation records indicated. Someone had opened that shaft and resealed it without any documentation. When, by whom, why, a officially unknown. The files. He shouldn't have been reading when investigators pulled Miller's workstation activity from that final shift. They found something no one had expected. At 8:37 p.m., 4 minutes before his final transmission, Miller had accessed the archive. Not current case files, not active investigations. 3 missing persons reports from 1998. All 3 disappearances had occurred within 15 miles of the hub. All 3 remained unsolved. None of them were connected to any active case on Miller's docket. There was no official reason for him to be reading those files, but there was a personal one. One of the 1998 cases involved a teenage hitchhiker, last seen near the outpost before the renovations were complete. The responding deputy who filed the original incident report, a young Daniel Miller, buried in that report, a line that investigators had overlooked for over 2 decades, a line written in Miller's own handwriting. Subject claimed someone was watching from the old dispatch building prior to disappearance. The old dispatch building, the same structure, now reinforced, where Miller had just been sitting. Whatever he had found in those files, he found it 4 minutes before he vanished. The signal that should not exist. 6 months after Miller disappeared, the case had gone cold. The building had been sealed for forensic review. No personnel, no activity. Then, during a routine satellite recalibration, a technician noticed something in the uplink logs. A signal spike, time-stamped 2:14 a.m., long after the building had been locked and placed under forensic hold. The spike lasted 11 seconds. No audio, no voice transmission, just an outgoing data pulse. Destination unknown. The hub had no scheduled transmission that night. No authorized personnel had accessed the building. No remote access had been logged. 11 seconds of data, leaving a sealed building, 6 months after a man vanished inside it. It was never explained. The whispers. After the story became public, former staff began coming forward, quietly, without press conferences, the kind of accounts people share when they've been holding something for a long time and finally feel like they can let it out. One former dispatcher said she had noticed radios in the hub activating on their own, broadcasting on unused frequencies in the middle of the night. Static at first, then occasionally, something that sounded almost like a voice. A former maintenance worker described footsteps in the storage corridors, heard clearly on multiple occasions after the building had been locked down for the night. He had assumed it was an animal. He had assumed a lot of things. Maintenance logs going back years showed unexplained equipment resets, machinery turning off and back on with no recorded cause, power cycling on its own schedule. None of it had ever been formally flagged as a security concern. None of it had been investigated. It had simply been noted, filed away, quietly forgotten, until a man disappeared. What his family knows. Miller's wife never accepted the official conclusion. She told investigators, and later journalists, that in the week before he disappeared, her husband had been different. Not frightened, not distant, focused, the way he got when he was working through a problem he hadn't solved yet, the way his eyes went somewhere else in the middle of dinner, the way he stayed up past midnight, not anxious, thinking. He mentioned once, almost offhandedly, that something in the old case archives wasn't adding up. She asked him what he meant. He said he'd tell her when he was sure. He never got the chance. Behavioral analysts brought in to consult on the case offered a theory that no one wanted to say out loud. If Miller had staged his own disappearance, why leave behind his daughters? Why leave without any money? Why choose a sealed facility with no exit? It created spectacle, but it provided no escape, unless the disappearance itself wasn't the objective, unless he had found something, and whatever he found him first. The building that still stands. The case was officially closed after 18 months, labeled unresolved, presumed deceased. No body, no suspect, No confirmed cause of death, no explanation. Officer Daniel Miller remains officially listed as missing. The dispatch hub still stands, 40 miles outside Red Mesa County, unused, locked, surrounded by desert in every direction. Some of the deputies who work that region say that if you park outside late at night and leave a radio on an open channel, you'll sometimes hear static that doesn't quite sound like static, something that rises and falls with a rhythm, something that almost sounds like breathing, and occasionally, very faintly, the beginning of a sentence. Copy. I've got. Hold on. Then silence. The questions this case leaves behind are not complicated. They are simply unanswerable. Why did the cameras go dark 2 minutes before the final transmission? Why was he reading 20-year-old missing persons files in his final minutes? What was the signal that left the sealed building 6 months later? What was resealed beneath that floor? And when? And by whom? And the question underneath all of them, the one that never goes away. If every door was locked from the inside, where did he go? In the desert, wind erases footprints within hours. Heat fractures concrete. Silence stretches for miles without an edge. The most terrifying mysteries are never the ones with too many answers.